Hi, I'm Etta Spencer. This is the day for our Global Town Hall. It's the last Sunday in March of 2026, and that's when we always get together and talk about the world affairs, or really what's going on in our own minds, if nothing else. So I'm about to open the door because I see that Marilyn Krieger is here. Hi, Marilyn, sitting there with a cat, and
Mhm.
then you have a feline of some kind behind you.
Yes.
I am not well versed enough to recognize different kinds of wild cats. So, what is this guy?
This is a mountain lion.
Oh,
And what I've been doing is I'm studying their behaviors and bobcat behaviors and how urbanization is affecting them. And it's not fun. It's not great what's going on with the amount of people going out on the trails and the building. It's terrible. Yeah. So
well, you told us last time about a mountain lion that had been found in San Francisco.
mhm.
Have they followed him now? How's he doing? They put him back
Yeah.
in the wild?
Well, it's funny that you should ask because what happened is that they did catch him and then they took him down about 60, 70 miles away. And 2 weeks ago, he was back in my canyon where I've been monitoring, and there he was. He was back, and like he
So,
has a collar on him, a tracking collar. So.
yeah. Well, so he knew his way, or he found his way, or he was homesick, or what was happening?
So he's dispersing. He's looking for his own territory. He's a young male that's between about 22 months and 24 months. And about that time, between 18 to 20 months or so, they have to leave their moms. They have to leave the area to find their own territory because the males especially are highly territorial and will probably kill him because he is competition with
Yeah.
resources.
But now, in your ravine or whatever, your canyon, was that his new territory that he staked out for himself?
Not big enough. Part of it, he was looking for it. It's about 88 to 90 acres. So he needs a very large area, and that could have been part of it, but I don't think that, I don't know.
Why do you think why would he need a bigger area?
Because the males need about 120 square miles, the females about 80 square miles.
Territory for hunting, or are there no females? Are there around there?
So the females' territories overlap the males.
Oh,
So, and there are quite a few females that may overlap.
mhm.
And yes, it's also for hunting. And the prey that they like the most is venison. So the appeal to my canyon was that I had lots of deer at the time in my
Oh,
canyon. They eat about maybe one a week. Yeah.
what?
Yeah, about one a week they'll eat a
Oh,
deer.
I thought you said 81. You scared me.
No, no, one a week, about one a week. Yeah.
Okay, well, I see that Bill Lycum is showing up with his fox. You got your mountain lion, he's got his fox, but I've got to greet some more folks. I have Paul Werbos with me. Hi, well, Paul, how
Hi.
are you? Back from the Arctic someplace, right?
This time it was Budapest.
Oh, all right, okay. Well, did you have a good time?
It was, as usual, undivided. Extremely scary times trying to get there. The logistics and the airlines were terrible. But when
Mm-hmm.
I got there, there were all kinds of really great, intelligent, connected people. And it was a really great experience that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you, when was the airline system messed up because of the war or
I
what?
think many things are coming all at once.
I see.
People were blaming it all on TSA, which is a real issue, but the European Union and the airlines in out of Europe have decided to go to very strict rules that very much limit the airlines and force them to bounce passengers around, and that was a big problem. and certainly the war also affected airline travel. So the combination of three things hitting the global airline system all at once really created a terrible mess. I am too old to do that again, even though the experience in Budapest was pretty positive and overwhelming.
I reached that stage about 15 years ago, or 10 anyway, before I said, well, that's the end of that. Anyway, welcome home. And I see Peter Brogdon here. Hello, Bill Lakem. How's your fox? You've got a different fox.
No, that's the same one. That's Limos.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. All right.
Anyway.
I thought it was a different looking fox. Okay.
Same one.
Okay, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm battling a problem with my hearing aids. One ear is clogged up with wax, and so I'm going to get that taken out Tuesday.
Well, now that I understand that, but I maybe you and I should have a little conference about how to pick hearing aids, because I got some at a cheap store, a Costco, about 15 years ago, and they kind of wore out. But I think Costco's given up even producing them or selling them, because there's some sort of breakthrough so that they can make decent hearing aids for much, much less. That was what I was told. But in fact, I bought a couple of these so-called hearing aids, which I wouldn't even call hearing aids because they really didn't work at all well. And I bought two of them, each at $150, which would have been a great bargain for a real hearing aid, but pretty bad if you just have to throw it away. So I have given up hope for the time being, but maybe you and I need to learn how to get smart about consuming.
I should be involved in that conversation too. That we could have a conversation with three of us on that one.
Well, maybe
four even.
Really? Okay.
And then,
all my friends are old. Paul, you're left out. You don't need hearing aids yet.
After I passed age 70,
yeah,
I decided I needed to really understand the science of aging and how to minimize it. So I've learned a whole lot of tricks that saved me trouble, and how to save hearing is something I've worked on for decades, and so I don't have problems.
Well, good for you. I didn't know there was some way you could preserve your hearing.
Yeah. If you've got a magic trick, come on.
Yeah, we'll include you in our conference on how to buy hearing aids.
Right, exactly.
That's not what I do, thank God. I don't need to do that.
Well, let's talk about the world for a while, because there's a lot going on. By the way, I haven't read today's newspaper. I usually read it on my Kindle, or my iPad rather, and I'm curious to find out whether the New York Times covered the No Kings demonstration. Any of you read the New York Times today? And if so, do they talk about no kings?
I don't know, but I was there I was demonstrating. I was there at the protest. I go every time.
Oh, good for you. Well, of course I can't anymore. But my reason is that I had a big forum with a woman who specializes in covering how the press is doing, as well as some other cultural issues like the cancel culture tradition and so on. And if that's a tradition. And in the thing, I was complaining that the mainstream press does not cover protest movements, and that one was that the New York Times didn't cover, to my knowledge, the No Kings demonstrations. Well, somebody wrote me a letter and said, well, no, the Times didn't, and most newspapers didn't, but that if you watched CNN or some of the other channels, that's the main thing they did for a long time. And so I'm very curious to see whether the New York Times is still maintaining their silence about the No Kings demonstration. So tell me do the organizers feel you had a successful day yesterday?
Yeah, they said that there were what I read in the San Francisco Chronicle and the Mercury News, they covered it.
Oh,
And they were saying there were at least 8 million people nationwide that participated.
is that up or down from previous ones?
I think, oh, that's a good question. I think there was one that had, there was another big one, and I think it had 7 million. So I think this one's, I think, pretty sure this one's considered up.
Yes,
Really?
I would. I watched on Midas Network, and there were very big demonstrations in beautiful weather, many places.
Well, were there any? I understand. I didn't know they were going to do this. That expatriates, Americans living abroad in various countries, had demonstrations of their own. What do you know about that? Because of course, I couldn't have gone in Canada anyway, but I would have been delighted to know that it was happening if there was one.
I heard about it too, that I think in Rome there was, and I think I'm not, yeah, that I heard about Rome, but I think other places too in the EU there were, from what I heard, but I can't substantiate that.
Well, did it seem to get enough coverage? That's the thing that has been puzzling me. Why any newspaper would consider that not news or not newsworthy?
But doesn't it depend on who owns the newspapers also? If it's more of a MAGA, more of a right-wing newspaper,
Well, yeah,
I don't think
but you wouldn't call the New York Times right wing,
No.
certainly. Centrist maybe, but
Mhm.
I mean, there are a number of journalists who take a hostile view toward demonstrations, any kind of demonstrations, and I find that very bewildering.
Yeah. I just looked up on the New York Times. I brought their main page up, and there was no mention that I could see. I just scanned. I didn't go into any depth. I just scanned the front page, and nothing was there.
I would be surprised if they even covered it all, frankly, because when I noticed last time, I never saw a word. And if they put it in, they would probably have put it on, a back page of some section,
Why would they cover it? What is your thought on why they wouldn't have covered it?
Not to offend some people, because they like to make a point of being fair, showing both sides and being objective. But I, I, I really, it's hard for me to empathize and put myself in their shoes and imagine how they're thinking. But according to this woman, they get complaints from right wingers that they want all kinds of news to be presented in a manner that's appealing to them. And if you can't think of a way to say something that appeals to everybody, the easy way out is just don't cover it. And that's her analysis. Well, that's such a simplistic way of thinking that it's hard for me to imagine the owners of the New York Times thinking that way. But I can't. They're not the only. I mean, you look at the Washington Post, or you look at almost anything, and I'm talking about American papers. But now you say you saw it in the Chronicle, so it's covered today there, huh?
Yeah, I got something from them. That covered it. Yep.
Okay.
I look at CNN every day, and through the weekend, CNN on the online news, because I'm having trouble setting up my television properly because I moved. So on my computer screen, I look at the CNN news every day, and they did cover it. They had videos about it, several articles, and from my understanding, this particular series of protests was the biggest one yet in every single state. And there were just throngs of thousands and thousands of people who came out.
And they were in big cities as well as small towns.
Right.
They were all a whole mix of people all the way across this country.
Uh-huh. Well, good for them. I'm not surprised because with the war, presumably that builds up the opposition to Trump. Um, and there are various pundits that I do read columnists here and there, and there are many people thinking, well, that's going to be the one thing that'll do him in because people really don't, even his own people don't like it, or it splits his own people. Some people like it, and some don't.
Yes.
And suppose now here let's play with the hypothesis that in the midterm elections, let's imagine that the House is retaken by the Democrats, and I don't know whether there's any chance that the Senate will be, but imagine that they get control of the legislature completely, of Congress. Well, then let's imagine that they say we've had enough of this guy. Let's impeach him once again, and they imagine they succeed, and then you would have Marco. No, you would have what's his face, Vance, being the president. So what's the outcome of that kind of scenario? What would he be up to doing?
Actually, that is a debate that I learned something about today, which could be very important and hasn't been resolved yet. There was a big meeting of something called CPAC, Conservative Political Action Committee, and they are deciding who to replace Trump with. And this will be very important. Who will they replace Trump with? Will it be Vance or will it be Rubio? Now, I'm not saying they're going to get rid of Trump in 3 months. But the elections are coming up, and there's a real question of who will be leading the Republican Party. And this is, whether you like it or not, it is a very critical variable because there are scenarios where the Republican Party really enforces the removal of democracy. I mean, there are really serious risks. But the question is, where are the risks and how do they be dealt with? And I was really kind of scared when I saw coverage, maybe even on France 24, saying, oh, and we all know Vance is a modern, civilized, urbane guy, and Marco Rubio, he's from one of those people we don't get along with, so of course we'll have Vance. And my impression is, if they do that, and if the rich powers that be shove Vance down our throat, we'll get a certain kind of industry coalition between oil and IT, which will make Trump seem benevolent and benign by comparison.
Okay, that's an interesting game. Well, look, I can see, I think that's a realistic debate about the future, but not for the midterms. I mean, not for the eventuality that they sack him, that they impeach him and get him out. But because I think it's clear that the vice president would take over in that case. But at the end of his term, for the next presidential election, the Republicans have to choose a candidate because theoretically, unless he really becomes a dictator, he can't run again. So, I mean, Trump can't. Yeah. So it would be a choice between Vance and Rubio. And I don't know which one I'd prefer. I think 3 or 4 years ago, I might have said that Rubio wasn't so bad. But now that was Rubio before he hooked up with Trump. He's certainly gone to the dogs since.
We're worried about not being that midterm election not happening. Trump is trying to figure out all sorts of ways of hijacking it so that it doesn't happen. And so that's a big concern.
Mm-hmm. And he would try anything, I'm sure, but I don't think there's very much that he could do to actually postpone. What would he claim? To postpone the elections because there's a war on or something like that? The American elections have never been postponed, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. No, I think what he's thinking is that if he can get them postponed, he's got everything in his pocket at that point. But I don't think he's going to be successful, because I think if this goes to the Supreme Court, we have to read our constitution. But those conservative Supreme Court members were put into place by the Congress because they said that they read the law, the Constitution, literally. Okay. And so if you read that those sections on voting and so forth and take them literally, the Supreme Court cannot back up Trump. I'm optimistic in that regard.
I hope you're right. He can also challenge the results of the election too, just like he's done before.
I was watching just before I switched to your channel, and there's the crowds shown in the TV pictures at least in Minneapolis and other places generally around the US are enormous. Exactly why the weather is so good today, I don't know, but it just seems to have been yesterday, that brought all the crowds out, because there were just enormous crowds in many, many, many cities, all protesting. And quoted as well was a poll result indicating, was it 41% against Donald Trump? So I think if this was mostly on the Midas network, which I happen to be able to receive, no kings, no kings, no king. And I find that quite encouraging.
I saw a poll that said 61% disapproved, did not approve of Trump. So, but what you're saying, though, you just said it the other way.
Yeah, I just looked at polls. I was looking on CNN Facts, there's different news sections, and it said that the popularity of Trump currently is 38%. And as for the protests, I'm looking here on just looking up No Kings protests, and not just on CNN today, but also on the news organization USA Today. They both speak to massive show of political force against Trump, showing pictures of thousands of people on the streets today, as well as yesterday, throughout the United States. Mm-hmm. So, and then furthermore, The Guardian, which to me is one of the best newspapers in the whole world, mm-hmm. based in England, their headline says this is the third No Kings protest, which draws 8 million worldwide to push back on the Trump administration, because he's having such a horrible impact on other countries, on other nation states. So mm-hmm. So that's what The Guardian headline is reading for today. 8 million people worldwide are pushing back against his administration, because it's not just him, but the people behind him.
Well, we need a change, not just of people, but of the system. We need a new constitution. We need a new rethinking of some of the ways it's set up. Number one would be that citizens, what's it called? The Citizens United or something like that. There's a law that makes it possible for people to give infinite amounts of money from corporations to pay for elections. So logic behind their decision is, in the name of free speech, you should be allowed to pay for as many ads as you want, and for apparently ads and funding determine pretty much the outcome of the election. I mean, it's sad to say that people are led around by how many ads they've had put in front of them. How do you get control of the government back in the hands of citizens and out of the hands of deep pockets? corporations or billionaires or, Elon Musk or whoever. How do
I
you
think
recover that?
that decision by the Supreme Court said that corporations were people.
Mhm.
I think that's the way it was phrased. And so that opened up the gates for corporations to do as they have.
Mhm.
So in order to quell that, then we need to take that to as an issue. That corporations are not people. That corporations are entities unto themselves and not.
Well, that is, there are a lot of implications of that beyond voting or elections. It's true in legal sense. Corporations have the rights and duties and privileges that people do in financial matters and every other sense of the word. And I don't know what would happen if you actually reverse that. I'm not sure a corporation, in our sense of the current notion of what a corporation is, I don't know whether it would look like what we have today. It would undo a lot more than just the elections. I know that because that's really what has given so much power to corporations in other ways in terms of controlling the economy and everything.
Mhm.
So, but what you could do, and it would affect people too, and I think quite rightly, let's say the funding of elections should be allocated to parties, if you're going to keep parties, um, on the basis of how many, let's say, how many members they have got signed up. If a party has 30 million party members, that you would get X number of dollars, and this would come out of the budget of the government. It'd be paid by the government in proportion to the number of members that the party has, and therefore it would be fair because it would reflect to some extent the popular amount of support that each party had. So it would have, and that would take care of it would take it out of the hands of, for example, Elon Musk.
Meta, I did watch your wonderful interview with, is it Asia Romano, about what the news covers. I watched that last night, and I thought I'll call her Asia. I thought
That's how she pronounces it, Asia.
Okay, good. I thought she made a lot of excellent points, but there were some things she omitted, perhaps because of her age. So I'm 78, so I'm between her age and your age. And I used to be a journalist for many years. In this digital era, it's the digital corporations that are quote unquote big brother, as George Orwell cautioned would happen in the future. And they have, to me, more power than the government and any government. And the governments are not taking responsibility, except with some exceptions in Europe, which of course makes Elon Musk furious because the Europeans are actually trying to put guardrails on these digital corporations and the power they have.
Mhm.
But in North America, we're totally failing both in Canada and the United States, and something has to be done to protect people because the corporations don't care about the ordinary citizen. So, but the other thing, other than digital corporations that are dangerous, they're under the radar. I'll read you a headline. A recent article is Canadian company helping white supremacists fundraise from hateful live streams. So, in other words, there was a program which, Meta, you may know about, called Fifth Estate. It's a CBC investigative journalism program, and it's called Fifth Estate because they did an episode investigating 3 Canadians in Alberta who in 2019 created a corporation that actually helps numerous hate groups, not just in Canada, but hundreds in the United States, raise funding to create videos about hate, mostly targeting Jewish people and Black people. And this continues to happen. And I find it shocking. Like, I just, holy smokes, since 2019, and nobody has shut down this corporation. So I personally want to figure out, like, I want to take more actions about how to raise awareness. Like, how is this corporation, I think, still operating in Alberta? Meanwhile, the 3 Canadians have fled to the state of Georgia in Eastern Europe, and the Fifth Estate reporters chased them down, but they had left town by the time they showed up at the office door. Mm-hmm. But they're still operating this corporation and raising money. And and what it reads in the article is that in the United States, there is an anti-hate organization called the Southern Poverty Law Center. So it's a US-based civil rights nonprofit organization, and they're monitoring 160 of the hundreds of hate groups across the US. And they agreed that this issue about this money coming in from Canada it is a huge issue. You know, so this is what we're dealing with, like not just corporations impacting, how people think through all the social media. And thank God, it seems that Zuckerberg lost the case about social media, right? And I think that's
but not on that ground. I mean, the suit in that case was that he hadn't been careful about protecting children.
Well, I know. So it's about, but that's also important, obviously, to influencing young minds and all of that. And meanwhile, though, he's developed these eyeglasses that can spy on people. And
oh, really?
And that's a whole other issue. But there's a long list of totally unethical practices by him.
I wish we had somebody who was a trained lawyer, Canadian and American here. Something like this is true, that the U.S. laws about hate speech are entirely different from the laws that Canada opposes and most European countries, certainly Germany, because in Canada, hate speech is illegal, and you can actually be prosecuted for hate speech. In the U.S., that's protected as freedom of speech. Right. And you can say any horrible thing you want, and prosecution is, I think, impossible for that. They might catch you on something else, but and that's where I'd really like to maybe have a conversation. Maybe I should set up a conversation between some American lawyers and some Canadian lawyers about free speech.
Well, there's a hate law federally, Meta, that some people are pushing that needs to be strengthened. So our hate laws in Canada are not thorough enough. And that's debatable. That's something that Parliament has to debate, because there are people that believe that the hate laws need to be strengthened in Canada. So, like, some people believe that we're falling short. So,
friends, we'll see you next month or the next meeting.
Oh, I must go. Charles, you have to leave? We haven't had a chance to say hello.
Yeah.
You have to go, so you have to leave. Well, all right. Well, thanks for coming. Take care of yourself, and I'm sorry we didn't get around to your issues for the day, because you always have enough issues to keep us busy.
We have more than enough issues to keep us busy.
Okay, what else is going on in the world? Tell me about the current state of the war.
People have learned not to show a lot of conviction about what Donald Trump is thinking.
That's a very true observation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I've read columnists saying, or a reportage, that that really Iran has the edge in terms of winning the war, unless Trump does something like bomb people's power plants. That Trump can't get enough other countries to help him clear the strait and open it up to all the shipping that he wants to have.
I see a schism really between Europe and the United States, or Europe and Trump. And I think what's beginning to happen is the downfall of the empire. And the empire is the United States. And so I don't have anything really concrete to add to that, but we're going through a serious transition here. And even if Trump is removed, we're not going to go back to what we had during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's not going to happen. We're going to reshape ourselves into something else. But I think the Constitution will live on.
Well, there's a guy named Paul Zeitz, whom I have interviewed twice about his projects, and his angle on it is that the U.S. Constitution needs to be revised, that there are many areas that need to be updated and changed. And so he actually is trying to mobilize enough engagement with the public to set up a time to hold a constitutional convention of some kind and really come up with concrete proposals for the kinds of changes that need to be made to the Constitution. A couple of meetings ago, I said something that Marilyn reacted to. I said something, I'm opposed to my own government, now. I want the U.S. to fail. And so I'm not opposed to Maryland, but I have to say I wish my own government ill. Almost everything the U.S. is doing now is so wrong that I want it to fail. And that, is a terrible thing to say about my own native land.
Maybe, but it takes time. The government will, maybe it'll be a democracy will prevail. Maybe, hopefully there will be a vote if we are allowed to vote. I personally, I'm not feeling real optimistic myself and feel that we have a dictator there. So
but look at the people protesting in the streets. that's what will keep democracy alive. If that continues to happen,
I agree there.
Freedom of
Thank you,
expression,
Sandy.
right?
Yes.
And that's the hope, because that's what a democracy calls people to do, is to step up, right? And so really, that's the hope. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And his popularity is certainly going down. I actually saw a poll that was talking about how many people are approved of what Trump was doing with the economy, and only 29% of the population approved.
You wonder what goes on in the minds of those 29%, though. I don't know those people. If you live there, you meet them. I live in my bedroom. I hardly ever go out. I go to the kitchen, but I don't go down the hall to the garbage chute anymore. So that's how cloistered I am. So I don't meet anybody. And to be honest, I always lived in a bit of a bubble. My friends were all people who thought the way I do. And I once in a while will make an effort to try to meet somebody who thinks differently, but I don't work at it very hard. So, and I bet you guys are not too different from me. Most of your friends are probably people that you agree with. But I cannot get in the head of people who think that what he's doing is the right thing. And I just plain don't imagine it. Help me.
So we, living here in Arlington, I go out of my way to meet people who think in very, very different ways. We had a little debate here in my house on Saturday about how to balance the two really big problems. And one of them is the legitimate concerns of the No Kings movement. The threats to democracy are greater than what those people believe. The threats to democracy are really huge, not only in the U.S., but certainly in the U.S. But then the other thing is, what about this war? And a lot of the people around here would say, if you open your eyes, the Iran Revolutionary Guard group has been very clear, very systematic. There's no question of what they're doing. There's a lot of wishful thinking and propaganda suggesting, oh, it'll be great, things are on a wonderful course, and they're not. And there are a lot of people who think the war is a bigger, more urgent problem than Trump, even if they agree that Trump is a problem. They believe that the war is a bigger problem because these guys have announced they want to wipe not only Israel, but the United States from the entire planet. And they very clearly are not limiting it to just those two nations. This is a serious problem this week. And the real question is, what could anyone do about it this week?
Actually, I do, unfortunately, or fortunately, I do run into a lot of people who are MAGAs, and it's rough. It's rough. And they, of course, they probably think this about us, but they froth at the mouth, and they're so close-minded, and there's just something about them. Personally, I feel like they've drunk the Kool-Aid. I know this is going out to everybody in the whole world.
Well, but I think we have to say what we think. And
Yeah.
I share your concern. Frankly, I think I'm even more radical on you without the basis that you have, which is that I think people are going crazy. I think those guys are nuts. I think that anybody who votes for Trump is psychiatrically impaired.
I think it's
a cult. Seriously.
I think
now,
it's a cult.
Call me what you will, but that's my best opinion.
I personally feel it's a cult.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that is absolutely true. No question, it's true.
Mm-hmm. That it's a cult?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What hits me are the historical parallels that Trump is so much like Trajan Caesar, who also had a cult. And we have visited the original headquarters of the cult, and we've also visited the center of Trump stuff. It is amazing how much history is repeating itself almost exactly, except for the major difference that with today's technologies, it's not the survival of the civilization, it's the species that is at risk. So it's very much at risk, but we should not underestimate how crazy some of these people in Iran can be.
I know. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I think, okay, so, and maybe I'm off base and maybe I shouldn't even talk about this, but I sometimes think that one of the reasons that we're seeing this, and the kind of people, or the people I run into that are such adamant Trump supporters, and the things that they're saying, it doesn't make sense. They're crazy. I mean, I agree. It's like, where did you get that from? That's not reality. But I think that part of this is that there is a feeling maybe they have of acceptance, that they're belonging to something. And that may be, well, in California, of course, is, a liberal state, right? That you do have pockets, but I feel that they cling together in a way because they support each other and help each other, and they don't feel so isolated, perhaps. So somehow having the same crazy belief system or whatever it is, and I probably should, I'm hoping I'm not setting myself up to be a target by saying this. I'm going to be honest here. So,
what is, if you ask them, if you say, well, a month ago you said you liked him because he wouldn't start wars. Now that he's started some wars, why do you still say he's okay? What, in that kind of dialogue, what do they say to justify rationally their acceptance of whatever he does?
Personally, I have not been able to have a rational dialogue. When I start to ask them about something, I get a lot of hatred and propaganda is what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing things that they are completely thinking out. Now, having said that, I do know some people who initially voted for Trump and now have said, no, 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 I made a mistake, and have gone to the blue side. So I do know people like that too, which is cool. And they really think about it, so they're not, I mean, all make mistakes.
Marilyn, I think you're pretty right on when you say that they find solace in their own little. How did you put it? Their own little club, and they reinforce each other in that light, and that becomes truth for them.
What? Just tell me what they're saying. See, they must think that what they're saying is rational, and they're giving you an arguable position, at least a defensible, legal, reasonable position. But what is it they say when they think they're being realistic? What do they say in justification for the tariffs? What do they say in justification for appointing only people to positions that agree with and that butter up Trump, and trying to actually prosecute people who have opposed him, etc. What do they say about what they did in Venezuela? What do they say about how come it would be okay to attack Greenland or try to annex Canada? What is the rationale they offer when they think they're being reasonable?
So I probably know more people like that than most of you, but I have to say that of things I've heard, when I was flying to Budapest, and the airlines were totally crazy. You think Trump is crazy? You should see what the airlines are doing these days. And I got stuck at the front of the line at the elite place with one other guy who was also stuck and frustrated. And he was the guy who handled security for all FIFA, for Olympics, athletics around the entire world. This is a very big job. And since he had no one else to talk to except me, he said, I'm just back from Washington, D.C. I just had a long one-on-one conversation with Donald Trump, with Vance, and with Marco Rubio. He said, my feeling about Trump is he's really mostly in another world. And you've got to be realistic about the fact he's not going to be here forever. He's mostly in another world. Vance represented a very aggressive corporate point of view. And if you fully understand what these aggressive corporate people want to do to the earth, you would be scared. And it scares me because that's where the money is. But Marco Rubio, he has many mistakes. But I don't know a world leader who doesn't have many mistakes. They all have many mistakes. But this guy is a real human being. And a lot of the things he's done under Trump, he did to please Trump. But we know what Rubio has wanted to do, what he's tried to do. We know he's a human being. We know the money people are against him. But damn it, because the people would like Marco better, and because he wouldn't blow up the world so quickly as all of the others, I strongly recommend it, he said to me, that you guys try to get the Republicans to nominate Rubio instead of Vance or his clones, just not because he's great, but because the way things are going now, we're all in deep shit.
Of course, the people who are in the cabinet have to accept Trump's authority and final verdict on what to say. But if he were out and Rubio became the president himself, I am pretty sure it would be true that he would change a lot of policies and wouldn't adhere strictly to what Trump is saying. And not because I know anything about him at all, because frankly, if I passed him on the street, I might not recognize him. I don't even,
I would recognize him. I was annoyed that he didn't support Walt Disney, if you can believe it, because I really liked Walt Disney. I think he was a great hero. But on the other hand, let's face it, we're talking about whether you blow up the world or not.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, what, Walt Disney? I got what? What about Walt Disney?
Oh, I personally believe that Walt Disney was one of the most constructive, great heroes of all of human culture. But just because Rubio thinks something differently, hey, I disagree with a lot of people about a lot of things. It doesn't mean he's going to blow up the whole world.
Okay, what does Mark Rubio think of Walt Disney? I'm not aware of that.
Well, it has a lot to do with Florida politics.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. It sounds right that Rubio would be in touch with the people, the government, and so forth. And I think what Paul just said about Trump living in his own little world out there, I don't think Trump is in his right mind, if you will. I think I think that we need to hear from some real professional psychoanalysts and psychologists about this man's mental state.
Actually, I have done that.
You have.
I know something about neuroscience, to put it mildly. I have credentials in neuroscience. And there was a time many months ago when someone connected me to the RFK Jr. entourage, which includes Trump's doctors and all the rest.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, you guys, you should know that this guy is headed towards the kind of breakdown that could just blow up the damn world. And the medicine they're using now is not enough, but there are recent breakthroughs in the neuroscience field that would make it possible to heal him and prevent the huge breakthrough that's coming. The feedback I got from these doctors was several fold. First, you're not allowed to talk about diagnosis outside of the inner circle.
Yeah.
Close to the inner circle, but basically, we're not allowed to talk about diagnosis. This is human privacy. These are his rights. That's the first thing. The next thing I said, if you're looking for the symptoms of a certain kind of nervous breakdown, if you really know how these things work, which you seem to, you should realize he may be already there. It may be too late. And finally, if he dies in the next couple of years, what's so bad about that? So that's what his own doctors were telling me. I think there was a way we could have cured him, but none of the people around him were interested in doing that.
May I add to that, please? And thank you very much, Paul. So in some of the research I've done online, going back to 2017, actually, I wrote a blog post back then, which pointed out that I felt that Trump was a sociopath and a pathological liar, both of which are,
Yes.
labels, that are recognized in psychology. But what I found in just some weeks ago is that there was a report done by a number of psychological professionals about Trump, and they published a paper. And there were a number of professional psychiatrists and psychologists who labeled him as a malignant narcissist. And you can look that up online. Malignant narcissist.
To learn about that, I just looked down the street in Washington.
Right. And also that he's falling into dementia, incrementally as we speak. And so there was one of the psychologists who was one of the authors of that report, which wasn't widely published or reported on at all by the news media, which is, an issue again of like what gets omitted by the news media. In recent months, this particular psychologist, and I apologize, I forget his name, but he was interviewed by the Daily Beast. So you could Google the Daily Beast, quote unquote, and see video interviews with this psychologist and how he's been tracking Trump for the last 8 years or something and looking at the deterioration, but why this doesn't get out more widely publicly, I mean, that's a question, right?
It's their concept of professional ethics. They were very clear to me. They knew it. The other interesting thing I've wondered about is, when does the 25th Amendment come into play?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the psychiatrists, I think, have some kind of obligation if they know and here I'm out of my depth. I don't know what I'm talking about. But if a psychiatrist knows that his client or his patient is going to kill somebody, doesn't he have an obligation to go tell the cops? I think that there's no professional anonymity rule there. Who are the cops in this case? Well, the people who need to be told. But of course, the people who love him are going to stay with him no matter. They would just say, "Now you're persecuting him for calling him crazy," and it wouldn't make any impact because people who want to believe, and they've committed. Although, as you say, there's a deterioration, but we still have apparently 29% still favor him. And I just want to understand the mentality of the people who are favoring him. I know enough about his mentality. He's as crazy as a barn owl, but it's the mentality of the people who support him that I don't understand, because they can't all be crazy, although maybe they are. I mean,
well, remember what I said before about the war. There is a certain overlap between people who are professionally trained, people I've spoken to, and a lot of these people have a feeling that the situation with this Iranian Revolutionary Guard is actually more urgent and scarier than anything involving Trump. And we've discussed exactly that subject. Yes, we all agree there's a problem with Trump, but if the Revolutionary Guard really requires very serious and difficult actions, these people will support Trump in what he's trying to do because they say this is the more urgent crisis. Now, I wish we didn't have to choose. I don't want to choose between death one way and death another way. For God's sake, there's got to be another way. But this week, I've been racking my brain. What is the better way? It should exist, but it's not easy to make out what is the better way to avoid both crises, the crisis of democracy and the crisis of the Iranian Guard. But I have to agree, the Iranian Guard is a little more urgent this week.
Mm-hmm. What can they do this week that Trump could stop? And if so, why hasn't he done it? I mean, I'm not sure if they actually have some levers that I'm not aware of. Then, I mean, Trump knows about those levers. And
both sides say there are levers that nobody else knows about. And I can tell you they are both right. I have access to information from many places. The levers are there for both sides to destroy the human species. And I don't see what the pathway is to stopping it. I try, I guess, from time to time. Certainly Iran is a big and complicated nation, so all kind of things could happen there that we don't understand. Uh-huh. And if this morning, 2 hours ago, if I tried to guess where could salvation lie, players in Iran who want to straighten things out might be our best hope. But that was just a guess of 2 hours ago. And 2 hours from now, I might change my mind again because I don't know what the hell is really going on.
Yeah. Okay. Let's assume that Marco Rubio is kind of a breath of fresh air or whiff of one. And then maybe inside the Revolutionary Guard, there's somebody equivalent to Marco Rubio, somebody who, if he got enough power to hold the others in check, would do so and would not use whatever you're talking about, a doomsday machine. It sounds like more than just obliterating the U.S., but obliterating a lot of other places.
Yes, we're talking about the entire species.
Well, yeah, okay. I don't know how to talk about that. Well, you just, if there's somebody who's crazy who has that button, God help us. We don't have any, there's nothing we can do about that.
It's kind of funny when you talk about the button because I have a personal connection to the button, but maybe I shouldn't. You just distracted me. You reminded me of another conversation.
Which one? Go on.
when you mentioned Trump was very proud about his button years ago.
Yeah.
What button?
I've been talking about, we've all been talking about the button to nuclear weapons of the last 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
So,
and of course, the U.S. is not the only one with that sort of a button.
so
But yes.
Yeah. Okay. Here comes Brian. You just came in the middle of, I don't know what, Brian. How are you? Okay.
Doing well.
Good. Looks like, are you in a car?
I am.
Okay. Well, we're talking about who's worse, the Revolutionary Guard or Trump?
I don't know. They're both fascist.
Okay. Now, if where Paul is coming from, it's not an academic question, meaning irrelevant. Academic usually means irrelevant. It's a significant question because he thinks that one or another of them has access to, let's say, the button, the capacity to obliterate the entire human species, and has no qualms about using it. And if given sufficient latitude to do so, would. Now, what do you do about that? If you don't know, then hypothesize.
It's scary when Pete Hegseth, Department of War, is lecturing the Department of War about revelations in the Bible.
I didn't know that. I'd be curious to hear more about that. I didn't know that. To me, that's interesting.
I read a report, and so, I just think we got to wait till November and, really have a blue election.
Could you tell us more about that report? Because I haven't seen it.
I don't know more than the rumor, but I did hear of several accounts.
I've heard it too. I've heard it too, and I've heard it from quite a few different accounts, and I can't put my finger on them. I'd have to Google them. I'm with Brian on that one.
So you have met his list. I would be very grateful for a link because this is a matter of life and death. It'll help if we understand what we're facing. So I would really like to hear what Hegseth said about that. I'd be grateful if someone would inform us.
I bet you can get it out of Google. I don't know.
I have troubles lately with my computer. It doesn't always give me what I want.
Yeah.
In fact, it behaves so suspiciously. I sometimes feel paranoid about my computer.
Join the club.
I've seen in the news also references to Hegseth as promoting Christian theocracy. And so that is being reported on CNN. So,
I watched, I'm sorry, go on to Sandy.
It would be important to look up some sources, like, try to find a primary source rather than this. News is always secondary source at best,
Okay.
So, thanks, Brian, for contributing that.
Well, I watched an interview. I think it was Ezra Klein talking to, is it Steve Bannon? And Steve Bannon is not in the government now, but for some reason still has influence, or doesn't. I don't know how much influence he has.
He does. He's moving the EU in his direction.
Well, it looks like he has some influence, and I think Ezra Klein was talking to him as if he did, and I don't know whether maybe he and Trump talk to each other now and then on the phone or something. I don't know what, but at any rate, when his explanation for Trumpism really astounded me. This is I can't quote him, but it's pretty close to quoting him. The upshot of his argument was, this is a man sent by God to save us, and he is a faulty human being, but he is what God sent us, and we must do whatever he decides we should do. So whatever he says, I will go with it because I believe in God. That's kind of the justification. Now, I'm asking you a different question. When you talk to people who are not trying to pin their whole rationale on theology, and claim to be trying to make a reasonable political decision. What do they say about specific problematic policies of Trump? The tariffs, the war against Venezuela, and his position on Gaza, his the spa on the Riviera that he's going to make Gaza into, the war on Iran, the threat against Greenland, and the threats against Canada, and I guess there was one against Panama, and now isn't it Colombia? But at any rate, Cuba. All of these have been threatened, and people who support Trump must have something to say about how come those are very good things to be doing. But none of you have given me what they really say, and I've never met one. I want to know what people say who are rational human beings, American citizens, who support Trump on the tariffs. What do they say?
You just cited Hegseth, and you explain why Hegseth is supporting Trump as best he can. And his statement did not require that Trump be right on the tariffs. Hegseth was saying, yes, Trump has a lot of problems, but damn it, we have to survive.
No, that was Bannon about a year ago, I think. 6 months ago. Oh, look, I mean, maybe I don't doubt that Hegseth says some of the same things. But the rationale that Bannon gave was he didn't even try to say his policies are right. He said God sent him, so we should obey him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He basically
These
said
guys
we
are
need him
just
to stay alive.
And here's Alexei. Hi, Alex.
Hello,
What's new in Warsaw?
Well, it's quite warm already. Spring is coming, so new. It's always like when the spring is coming, it always brings some hopes.
Is the climate in Warsaw that different from Moscow?
It's approximately 1 month apart. So it would be the weather. It would be something like late April in Moscow.
Okay. They say the cherry blossoms are out in Japan. I've been asking people to help me get inside the mind of the people who support Trump, no matter what. And nobody's really. I still haven't had a glimpse of what that's like, except apparently a lot of them must be motivated by religious zeal or something, that they think God sent him, and so our duty is to accept him. I don't know how many of them think that way, but there have to be some who would say they're giving a political analysis that is rational and not theological, and that I really would like to know what that mentality is like, because I don't meet any of those people. Do you meet people in Warsaw who approve of Trump?
Well, there are quite a few. Mostly these are conservative people. Some of them Poles, some of them even Americans. They are conservatively minded, and they think that Trump. They hope that Trump will bring order. That he will make people work. He will make people. He will bring back the Gilded Age, a little bit, which is a little bit of a dream that might not have a chance of coming true. But that's what people say, that they just want to have old times back, which is not realistic, but maybe they're just disoriented with the complexity of modern world, and they want simple answers to complex questions. That's what I get from my talks with them.
Okay, Sandy.
Yeah, apologize, I had to step away. Just to finish up previous conversation, and welcome, Alexi. It's great to see you. I just wanted to speak to
Same here.
Meta's question about this 29% that supports Trump. And rationality. So here's something to think about. For many years, we've heard about the moral majority, quote unquote. In other words, Christian fundamentalists. So now we're hearing the term Christian nationalists, and I believe that, perhaps a large percentage of the 29% are those type of folks who would stand behind Trump, and also Hegseth, who's now, his pastor belongs to a very influential church in terms of this type of fundamental Christianity. And these people have very extreme ideas. And so I'm just suggesting that this is like one of the characteristics of the type of person that is supporting Trump and Hegseth, etc., to do what they do and
I agree with you.
take that position, right? So
Yeah, it does. I agree 100% with you, Sandy.
Well, okay, the question is what percentage of the 29%, what proportion are animated by theological considerations, and how many believe what Alexi is saying, that they just like a more orderly, understandable, old-fashioned culture where you know where you belong. I understand some of those things, I even share a few of those things, I won't go into them because it would take us afield, but I could even argue that case in a few matters. But what fraction? Not all of those 29% are theologically motivated. Some of them may think, I just want a simple rural lifestyle that my grandmother had, and then I'd know how to cope. And okay, that may be maybe that all we need to think, explanation. I don't know, Sandy.
Okay. To add to my first suggestion, the other one is what we've been witnessing for, like about the last 10 years or longer, is the fact that a lot of people who have been disenfranchised for like more than a century and longer, like the indigenous people for 5 centuries, like people now, all of the people that are being marginalized and discriminated against, they're gaining more power now, economically and politically, and being recognized and included. But there has been a growing resistance from white people who feel threatened. And there's been, studies done now on this and books written and on about like white Euro-Western people just totally cannot accept this because they feel that their power is being undermined and they want their power back. And so that's the other aspect for sure, is that awful racism that's been there for a very long time and has many faces. And I've been fighting racism for 40 years, so I could talk forever about this issue, right? But that is absolutely part of like people wanting to go back to so-called good old days, which never were good old days for a lot of people. And it's just, we're in a very huge regressive historic moment. That's what I believe. And like, how do we, find a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train coming, right? Like, how do we get out of this dark place and evolve our human consciousness?
Now you're pointing, Sandy, you're pointing actually to a third motivation. The third, we've been talking about rationality versus, or I've been thinking in terms of rationality versus theological justifications. God wants this. But now we have another kind of dichotomy. Is it people wanting the old simple lifestyle where the answers were clear cut, and the culture gave you clear answers. What is a boy and what is a girl? Nowadays you can't necessarily tell. And that bothers some people a lot. So that could, that the rural versus urban is very big. I like my shotguns and the right to go hunting, and I like boys' washrooms to be labeled male and girls' washrooms female, and I don't like gay people marrying each other and all of that. So that simple, straightforward, old-fashioned culture is one thing versus urban, sophisticated folks like us, and that we have too much power, and they feel resentment because they've been excluded from political power with their regressive, old-fashioned ways. That distinction is also in there. Now there's another dimension, and that is, you mentioned Christian nationalism. So nationalism itself is another factor, separate from white. White is white versus, immigrants or colored people, or, people not like us. Those are ethnic distinctions, but nationalism is also a factor. And we are American, and we've been here, our ancestors have been here for generations, and so we're the real Americans, and America comes first. Make America great again, etc., or make Russia great again, or make whatever. And that is another factor. I had a guest here yesterday, day before, who teaches peace studies at the University of Hawaii, and she said her university is run now by a consideration that never occurred to me, and that is Hawaiian nationalism. The people they collapsed whole departments because they want to get staff, only staff who favor autonomy for Hawaii and the superior status of Hawaiian tradition and culture and politics and so on. I hadn't heard anybody talking about Hawaiian nationalism, but it's apparently extremely important. Well, all of these other European countries, I mean, whether you're talking about Hungary or wherever, nationalism is a big thing in it, and it's apparently big to the Trumpists. I don't know. So I guess what I'm interested in is, can we assign weights to these different factors? And I see Bill has an urge to answer. Yes, Bill.
Well, I don't have an urge to answer that. I want to bring in something else that is relevant here.
Okay.
And that is the speed of change. The speed of we're living through a period in history that is changing so fast that some of the people can't keep up psychologically, emotionally.
Yeah, all of us. None of us can.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm doing fairly well.
Are you? I'm not.
Are you?
Maybe I'm a delusion. It may be a delusion. But anyway, that's one of the things I wanted to put into the conversation.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. But now, okay, so that should split the MAGA movement, because if MAGA movement want to go back to old-fashioned ways and simpler ways, and not be challenged by all of these difficult technological innovations and sexual bifurcations of gender and whatnot, and yet the main people funding Trump right now are the AI, the Brotherhood of Silicon Valley, with their billions. And they are the guys who are causing the most rapid change of all.
Yes.
And so how do the people who want a simpler lifestyle reconcile themselves with the rapidity being created by, Musk and Peter Thiel and, all of this, Zuckerberg and all those guys.
Well, Trump ran on "Make America Great Again." Okay, that "again" part is it refers to something in the past, something when change was people could handle it, But today, maybe that 29% of the people, some of them anyway, are just fed up with all this technology and change that's going on, and they think that Trump can take us back to a time when things were a little slower.
But we've been talking about trying to regulate AI. It needs to be put really controlled, because I think of all the threats facing us, and not counting the one that Paul knows about that he's not telling us, whatever weapon that is. The thing that scares me most is AI. It's the most, and I use it all the time, and I wouldn't do without it, but I'm also very scared of it. And I really think it's as dangerous as anything in the world right now. And Trump does not want to regulate it, and is even, putting sanctions against people who try to do it. Europeans and European governments that try to control AI platforms. He's doing things to try to punish them for it. So he's got his movement divided on that. I don't know how serious the division is. Sandy.
Well, Alexei's had his hand up, so I'd like to hear from
No,
Alexei.
no, ladies first. Ladies first. Okay.
That's an old-fashioned idea.
That's. I would venture to add one more dimension to this. It's been touched upon, but I think it deserves a little bit more attention than that. And that is the risky gender dimension, because I see, and I read an article in a Polish newspaper 2, maybe 3 days ago about men who are increasingly willing to have obedient wives, not partnership with a wife, but a wife who would obey them. So these are Generation Z or maybe Alpha even. So the trend is growing for younger people to have more pronounced gender roles. For example, in my generation, it would be more would be more typical for someone to want a partnership, to share responsibilities, not to have respect in a family, not to give orders. But there is obviously a group of people, some maybe like white men who are maybe not only white men, but men who are willing to get back to the times of their fathers or grandfathers, where they were the men of the house, where they would be in the center of the family. And maybe some people feel nostalgia about that. And when Trump epitomizes a man who is just authoritative, who supports the traditional gender roles, who opposes, who I guess there was a decree signed by him stating that the U.S. as a country would only, the U.S. government would only support two genders, man and woman. So that speaks to some people probably, and of course there are women who also like tread wives or something, who also support traditional values, maybe overly traditional values. But I guess if we look at the demographic of Trump supporters, something tells me that we will find more men than women in that demographic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I totally support what you're suggesting, Alexei. And for example, I've seen the term toxic masculinity.
Right.
There's a whole movement about men feeling that they need to take power over women again instead of having equality across the genders, male and female, and also in different countries of the world. And I read too how in Afghanistan how the Taliban is taking more control to be even more oppressive of the women in Afghanistan. So this is not happening just in European countries, but in other parts of the world. This regression again, another aspect of this moment of regression, has many faces, right?
Yeah, I often tell friends who are interested in this issue, France 21 is such a great resource. France 21 invests so much effort into really understanding what strengthens women all across the planet. It's really amazing. And they have a website with just incredible resources on this subject.
I have never heard of it. Do they have anything in English?
Yes. In fact, France 24 is very proud that French and English and a couple of other languages are very well covered all over the earth.
Okay. I haven't covered things about feminism very much. I mean, I got enough to handle. I can't handle that one too.
They're more than...
Well, Brian, you're back in the U.S. after how many years in Australia?
5 years in Australia. We're here through Climate Week, and then back to Australia April 26th.
Well, I want you in on that inquiry, and I don't know why you didn't show up, but I want you back. And also, I'm curious about what you see that feels different in the U.S. now from when you lived here. There.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more polarization. There's a lot more fear. Our institutions are breaking down. We're in the fourth turning, and that is collapse of a lot of our institutions, and we're going to have to build new civic organizations that will build something new that renders the old system obsolete. So to that end, we're aiming for community abundance of energy, food, and labor, and a network state of civic, what do we call it? Citizen assemblies like this one that can go the way towards moving beyond the tyranny of autocracy, moving beyond the tyranny of a majority in a democracy as we saw in 2024, and move towards a consent of the governed with consent frameworks, consent over consensus. That's our prescription for better governance.
So you hear people actually using the term citizens' assemblies?
Yes, look at Audrey Tang's work with polity, pluralism, and plurality.
That's in Taiwan. I was thinking about the U.S. Are you hearing people in the U.S. talking about citizens' assemblies? This guy, Paul Weitz, that I talked to twice, I've done 2 shows with him, and he gave me the list, names of, a dozen or so major organizations that are trying to reform the political system in the U.S., and I don't know what all, but they apparently do employ citizens' assemblies as part of their organizing mechanism. But there are at least a dozen huge organizations that I had never even heard of before, and I should get to them and organize a conversation about what the structural changes would amount to if they get around to fixing the flaws in the governing system or the constitutional current arrangements. Do you hear people talking about what needs to be fixed that will make America democracy the broken democracy repaired and workable again?
Yes, the reason Mamdani was elected was due to ranked voting. And there's also the need for all state primaries. Those proposals failed the Nevada ballot in 2024. And so, the U.S. has one of the oldest and creakiest representative republics on the planet. We have to we have to implement all state primaries. We need to repeal.
Please elaborate on all state primaries. Tell us what that would amount to.
Right now, party primaries drives both parties to the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
An all-state primary, every resident of a state can vote in an all-state primary, like in Alaska. The result is the candidates have to appeal to the middle, and it brings people together, not apart. It reduces polarization.
Okay, go on. Thank you for that.
Well, Citizens United, every dollar gets equal vote. Same problem in Australia with the $90 million slush funds. We've got to get dollars out of politics. One person, one vote. That's absolutely mandatory.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what are the steps that people visualize in achieving these changes?
An overwhelming blue election in November. We had 8 million people demonstrate no kings yesterday. 8 million people.
How many of them are going to vote? I don't know. If they voted Democratic, that doesn't necessarily mean they're voting to have constitutional changes.
Look, even MAGA does not want the Iranian war. It's, Trump's going to lose big time because the mullahs are going to block oil till November.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way the U.S. or the world economy gets out of this alive. The shortfall is 10 million barrels a day. That's, there's only 20 days supply with the strategic reserve. So there's no way Trump gets out of this economy intact.
Well, the rest of the world doesn't come off scot-free economically.
I agree, and apologies for last week. We had Bioneers. I was at full capacity, but happy to participate in the future.
Okay, good. That's Wednesday at 4. I won't. If any of the rest of you still want to join, I think Alexi will, at 4 p.m. Eastern time, which is now daylight saving time, which is an hour different from what it was, and may put you off sync from wherever you live. But Canada's on daylight savings now. At 4 p.m., the inquiry will continue to discuss in the second meeting the topic of ways in which carbon emissions can be reduced. Now we have an agenda of 4 more meetings coming up, and the first meeting will look at the technological or mostly technological ways of reducing carbon emissions, which is of course the only approach that is generally considered the real and legitimate and maybe only way of getting to a carbon, go back to a cooler planet. But it's going to take too long, and nothing in that that first category is sufficient, I think, to get us into a climate again that is bearable. But then the following session will be ways of removing carbon from the atmosphere or from the sea, and sequestering it, and actually reducing the concentration of carbon that's causing greenhouse gas, etc. Greenhouse effect. And then the next one will be about reflectivity, the technological ways of increasing the albedo. That is the reflectivity of usually it's clouds and ice and white houses and everything reflective into reflecting incoming sunshine back into space. And there are definitely ways of doing that. And then the fifth and final meeting in the series, which is every Wednesday, the fifth meeting will be an attempt to take all the previous ones and take the decisions and review our decisions in the previous sessions and come up with a statement of recommendations that we would all endorse or by consensus accept as a policy position. And that recommendation list could be used by anybody wanting to lobby government or anybody else. Brian, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish. We want to remove CO2 from the surface layer of the sea. It turns out there's plenty of room in the middle and deep ocean for CO2. And we just have to distinguish the surface ocean, where 99% of life is, from the middle and deep ocean, where there's a great carbon sink.
Put stuff in the middle?
Oh, the biological pump does it just fine. It's just, it's not removing it from the ocean. It's removing it from the surface layer of the ocean, reducing ocean acidification in the surface layer.
Okay, that is okay. Now you may want to tell us a little about that, because my understanding is that if you just removed stuff from the atmosphere, that wouldn't really handle it, because the atmosphere and the oceans have some sort of equilibration. So you just get more back into the atmosphere out of the ocean, because they stay in some sort of balance. So unless you remove things from the ocean as well, I mean, our carbon from the ocean as well, which would be deacidifying it, you're not really going to get there, right?
Yeah, it's the top layer of the ocean you want to deacidify, and that's done by plankton and algae. So it's really about it's about restoring, algae and photosynthesis in the ocean, converting CO2 to carbohydrate, and the biological pump sinks it, and we can harvest algae and get that out of the ocean as well. So it's all about, restoring. Life does a great job of fixing carbon on seas and on soils. We just need to give nature half a chance. She'll rebound exponentially.
And help the kelp and help the seaweed, right? And the phytoplankton,
exactly.
Right? How do we help them?
Oh, we just have to reconnect algae with its supply of deep nutrients to overcome ocean warming.
How do you do that?
Deep cycling with marine permaculture.
All right. See, I'm setting you up for everything.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Well, I much appreciate what you're doing, because you're doing the very thing that you're not just talking. You're walking the walk, or whatever they say. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we like to say fins in the water, boots on the ground. Panama upwelling failed January 2025. It's going to fail again January 2027. We're engaging with Panama and the major sardine anchovy fishing associations. Boots on the ground, fins in the water.
Oh, okay.
Panamanian government, and we're working with 3 organizations to make it happen.
I don't know anything about that. Yours is the Ocean Foundation. What is it?
Climatefoundation.org.
Hey,
Okay.
Brian, are you doing any work in the Monterey Bay with the sardines? And with what's happening?
We've raised $350,000 for America's first marine permaculture pilot. We need to raise a matching funds of $300,000 this year to greenlight the project and get it launched. First pilot project in the Americas for kelp. So any amount of support, get the word out, family offices, angels, if we can match the funds, we can greenlight the project this year, first project in the Americas.
And that would be where? In San Francisco Bay?
First year, Santa Barbara Channel. Second year, If we get the right funders, we'll go anywhere from Canada to Mexico to the Pacific coast.
And these would be kelp farms?
Kelp cultivation. We call them mariculture because there's no inputs, no fertilizers. It's a truly stellar technology. Once you build it, you'll be growing seaweed for decades.
Mm-hmm. But it's your platform deal, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Describe it. Go ahead. We only have 5 minutes left, so you can have 3 of them.
Yeah, the seaweed drops at night. It's attached to a big platform. We have little tractors that lower the seaweed at night, the whole platform. And the seaweed acts like a sponge and soaks up nutrients all night long, nitrate, phosphate, micronutrients. At sunrise, we raise the platform to the surface where it absorbs sunlight and carbon dioxide in the top meter of the sea. And it's the combination of deep nutrients and surface CO2 that provides the additionality. A quarter of the seaweed falls off the platform during growth, sinks 1,000 meters a day to the deep seafloor where it remains for centuries. It's a true blue carbon sink.
Does this do anything about the acidity of the ocean?
Yes, the pH increases by 1 point or more downstream from the kelp forest. It's fantastic to reduce ocean acidification, and the shellfish love to grow downstream.
And there are people who will eat the fish.
Oh, yeah. The fish habitat and the fish food is fantastic. And it helps local coastal communities with food, feed, and fertilizer.
I just had seaweed soup for lunch, which had a lot of kelp or some kind of seaweed in it. And it's the first seaweed that I think I've enjoyed. Mostly I don't like what I taste, but this tastes pretty good. Can you guarantee that if I buy your seaweed that I'll enjoy my seaweed soup?
Definitely. And, that seaweed gives you a vegetarian source of EPA and DHA, omega-3 fatty acids. America, India, and Australia had the lowest 10% of intravenous EPA, DHA in the bloodstream. A third of the world has the Alzheimer's gene, and these are the fatty acids that will stave off Alzheimer's.
All right. Are you sure? I mean, I hadn't heard that. So, and I think most of us, all except for Alexei, are candidates and Marilyn, are candidates for your anti-Alzheimer's drug.
I'd say a third of the world has to be off a Western diet, and they need to be eating EPA, DHA. Seaweed is a great source, vegetarian source.
Okay. I'll shop for whatever kind seaweed tastes good. All right, thank you. I want to tell you a little bit again about this inquiry because I expected some of you to join it. It does involve a little homework. It's every week. There's about an hour of reading, or half an hour at least, of reading to do to prepare, so that when you come to a meeting, you'll know a little bit already about the various suggested technological solutions that we'll be discussing. Every week we'll review a few, because I picked a total of 20 different measures that some people advocate as solutions to the climate problem. And we've divided them up into categories, and we'll be discussing them, but you need to know a little bit before you get there in order to have an opinion, because we only get about 5 to 7 minutes to discuss each one. And then we make a decision whether or not we think this is worth pursuing, or is it a bad idea that we should stop completely. And so far, most of them have said yes. We think the measures that we discussed in the first meeting, which were all measures that governments could undertake, treaties or tax laws and things, that sort of thing. Most of us have agreed that those are almost all worth trying. But the rest of them, or most of them, are going to be technological solutions. Anyway, we meet at 4:00 Eastern time. And if you want to join the inquiry, I'd like to have you sign up, register for it, so that I'll have a list, because every week I'll send you a batch of things to read. And if you disagree with what people said the last week, you can always write a letter to the whole group and tell them why they were wrong and they should think the way you think. So that's legitimate. I want to encourage those of you who can spare an hour, well, it's a total of an hour and a half a week for the next 4 weeks, to join us. But to do that, go to our website, tosavetheworld.ca, and there are 2 little bars, one for joining a class, which is not what this is. The other one is to joining the inquiry. And if you click on that, you say you want more details, it'll take you to a window where you can sign up, and you can find out what's involved if you sign up. You'll see the agenda and so on. So please, if you're willing to spend that much time learning, you'll come away with a better, at least somewhat different and more nuanced understanding of the variety of technological proposals that are available as potentially helpful ways of reducing global warming. And I think it's time for us to all pay attention to doing more than reducing carbon emissions, because that's not working and has not worked for 50 years and is not going to work at all fast enough. So we have to do more, which means you need to know more. Everybody willing to, or not everybody, and you don't have to indicate here whether you want to do it or not. You just go sign up, and then I will send you the material that you've already missed. And each week, if you miss one, you get to watch the recording of it, the video recording, and the material that you should have read before it.
If the time doesn't work?
A little bit of work, yeah. Okay, Paul?
For some of us, the time does not work.
Well, yeah, that's too bad. I tried to set it, a lot of it, to accommodate people living in other parts of the world. People in Australia have a hard time. So 4:00 is almost the only acceptable time for to getting Europeans and Australians together at the same time. That leaves out the Indians, though. People in India have a worse time. So you can't make it happy for everybody. Anyway, that's the end of that. What more do we have to say before I say goodbye? Any final thoughts or benedictions? You're sending love. Thank you, Sandy.
I'm gonna plug my granddaughter. Okay.
Uh-huh.
She is working on this whole problem of global warming and algae in the sea and so forth. That whole issue right there. She's working on her master's right now, and moving ahead.
Great. Where is she?
UC Santa Barbara.
Okay, that's a good place to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys have been good friends again. I appreciate your company. You're my best social life. So I'll see you. I'll see you in a month. Okay. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.